Well, hello, everyone. This is Wilson Cole with Adams, Evans, and Ross and Backdoor Hire Solutions, and I am joined by our staff attorney and my lovely daughter, Samantha. Sam, how are you doing?
Doing good for a Monday. Can't complain.
I understand. Well, we've had some drama here over the last week or two with different clients that we always talk about you have the right to shut up. This is, in my opinion, kind of a version of that. Of if this ever happens, don't assume that you know what's going on. Pick up the phone, call Sam, call myself, so we can walk you through it. We've had some history with checks that have come into clients prior to us getting involved where they write some variation of paid in full. And I know where the clients are coming from the aspect of that has changed over the last 20 or 30 years. In the old days, if you wrote some special wording, all rights reserved on the check, you would kind of preserve your rights. But we've had some recent rulings in different states that have kind of weakened that. And we've kind of gone to, if they write something cute on the check, you probably don't need to deposit it, which I just had a client recently say, well, back in my 1980s law class, they said that it didn't matter because of this, this, and this. We know that the judges are now ruling against us. And so, Sam, I'm going to shut up and kind of give your 2 cents on what happens when a client gets in a disputed check that says paid in full.
Well, there's a couple of things, and usually, and also when it's the 1980s law class, when I hear that, and I don't mean to sound, intellectually arrogant, it's never an attorney saying it. It's a business class they took along the way, because there are the continuing eds where I get emails where it's this changed or that changed, and we need to not pay attention to 30 years ago what was in a textbook, because we're getting into these power sources of, oh, I got it. And it's like, yeah, that's fine and dandy, but if you had rejected the check and got it collected in full, then there's not as much liability, because what we're running into is they deposit the check, it's paid in full, they then turn it over for collections for the balance. We may not even know about it.
Yep.
It goes through litigation, all of a sudden in discovery, it's hit. Or if we don't even get to discovery, it's a countersuit is filed for a frivolous action because the debt's already been settled. And now it becomes a complicated legal battle of who was right.
Yep.
And it really depends on what state, on what the courts are ruling of, that may have been settled. And, some states you have 30 days to, it accidentally got deposited, you realize it, you can reverse it, things like that. Some states it's 90 days. But you can't just have this open-ended, well, I'll just write something, not accurate, on the, and point to where they wrote it and think that everything's fine now. Because it really complicates and muddies the water when things probably would have been a slam dunk before then.
It would have been slam dunk, but there are different hierarchies. I mean, the rule number one is if they write some bull on there paid in full, you're better off not to accept it. But if it's on the check stub, it's going to hold less weight than if it's a restrictive endorsement on the back in a lot of cases. So, are you just a little screwed or are you totally screwed? But I do agree with you. It gives them a defense. And we had one a few years back where they used a Post-it note. They didn't even write it on the check, and they were attempting to utilize the argument on that. So we've talked about this before. If somebody says they're not going to pay you, the best thing to do is to shut up and get us involved. If they get in a check that says paid in full, what should be step 1, step 2, step 3?
I think, one, if you don't know, if all of a sudden you send an invoice and it's not past due or anything, and you get a partial payment that says paid in full, you may want to contact the debtor hey, this isn't the full amount, I'm sending this check back.
Yeah.
To see if you can get it collected the full amount. But then if they're, well, we're not paying because you did this, or you over invoiced, or you overbilled, or then at that point, don't cash it, because you don't want to give them a defense if you're wanting to proceed on the full amount. If you're going to cash it, then know that that is most likely the max amount you're going to be able to get.
Well, and if they're disputing it, they send the check into you certified, and it has paid in full. It's different, and that's why, and we've had this discussion before, why everybody hates attorneys is that you guys look at it as layers of defense. And, well, gee, we had, payment in full on it. That's a layer of defense. We had payment in full. We sent it certified, layer of defense. And we sent a letter with them and told them, over the phone that this was payment in full. If you each time that they throw one of these layers on there, it's going to chip away. And so the best thing to do is to send it back to uncertified, because there is an argument if you keep the check and if you don't deposit it. This is why people hate attorneys. Just understand that if you keep the check and don't deposit it, there's an argument that they make that you accepted the check.
Mm-hmm. And I think we also need to do a variation. If they send you a partial payment and something to sign, know what you're signing.
Oh, dear God, yes. Some of the stuff that we have seen here lately has been punitive, to where it doesn't say paid in full, but you cannot do anything if they don't pay you. I mean, it just gets into the land of the bizarre.
Or I'll get the call of, well, I actually signed settlement paper, but, I really just wanted to get the check so that I could pay it, and I knew I could go after it. I'm like, no, you signed a settlement. You can't go after squat.
Yeah, and we've had that discussion before. You weren't under duress. Yes, you may have been broke. Yes, you may have needed the money. That doesn't constitute as duress, as we've talked before, unless they've got a gun to your head.
Or your child.
Or your child. It's not, it's not duress. So just know that what makes perfectly good sense to you, well, I didn't agree to it, and somebody said, well, next time I pay my car payment, I'm just going to put paid in full on it. A car or a mortgage has some additional contracts to it, and there's a title issue, but rule number one is it does probably give you a layer of defense. But on open account is the bottom of the proverbial food chain of payables. This is, you sent out a product, they gave you a promise to pay, you sent them over an invoice. When you start putting different conditions on it, or the debtor does, it really weakens that position as well. So, just if you get in a paid in full check, if it's a mistake, call the debtor, but understand that if you accept the check, then you probably are going to be the best that you can do, because it's one of those to where even running it through collections, we probably wouldn't be successful. If we had one of our forwarding attorneys sue them, what we see is that they come back and they countersue because of their argument is they've already made an agreement. Samantha, any last final words on the subject of if they have paid in full on the check?
I think that pretty much covers it. Just don't think you can outsmart the debtor, because they usually have somebody that has taught them well, or they've done it enough, they know it's going to hold up.
And there again, that is a brilliant point. Is a lot of clients, well, they'll come at it and they're looking at it from their own perspective to where they pay their bills. I can assure you, in most cases, if you have a debtor doing this, this is not the first time that they've done it. They probably have a small fortune in savings for other folks that they've done this to, and they're probably going to be slicker than you are, at least at that initial blush of it. So that is a good point. Understand they probably have done this more times, evaded more bills than you tried to collect on, if you're one of our clients. Well, Sam, thanks as always for your help and insight on that. We'll see you next week.
Sounds good.